everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room on a Frantastic Friday. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you in the future for deciding that I'm on your time. Okay. Really appreciate you being here. We've got such a jam-packed show today on a Frantastic Friday. Sometimes just 2 stories. Sometimes we've got interviews. And so I am very excited to have 2 authors of a book that I think everyone should be aware about. If you can get your hands on a copy, do so. Get it from your library. We're talking about how actually the policing of our country, the over-policing, the prison industrial complex, if you will, is making us all less healthy and, yes, less safe. And I realize I say this at a time where immigrants are being rounded up for the mere fact of existing, and they're being disappeared into gulags abroad. Children are being deported without their families. Citizens are being deported. And we also are living in a massive backlash to the George Floyd uprising moment, to the BLM movement. Obviously, these corporations were never going to save us anyway when they create their, little Black Stories lists on their splash pages. But what are movements doing about it? What are activists? What are health workers? How are we carrying on this fight for real justice when it comes to both policing, but also, in this case, talking about also healthcare? It's going to be a good conversation. I hope I have prefaced it correctly and rightly. And then we're going to get into some, the ghouls. The ghouls are up to no good. Kristi Noem wants to create she's actually, oh my God, we live in hell. She's developing a reality show where immigrants get to bid and compete for their ability to stay in this shitty country. Honestly, I just give just give them money. Just give them money. Give them a lot of money. Also, we're going to talk about Miss Rachel being sort of raked over the coals by the New York Times in their smug, obnoxious neo-lib way. And then an interview that actually did her a lot of justice on Zateo that everyone should check out. We're going to watch a little bit of that. P. Diddy. He's in the news. I was like, should we touch the P. Diddy story? I don't know. It's so depressing. It's awful. Oh, wait. He's now trying to work with Donald Trump in order to get himself a pardon, just like every other sexual abuser, scammer, mayor of the largest city in the country, Eric Adams, any other high-level criminal is working with the Trump administration to try and get this pardon because the dude sees the walls closing in. So we'll look at that. Also, Mike Johnson out was just some beautiful. The dude just got his budget bill slammed, not even by Congress as a whole, but by the budget committee. Look, I don't know much about anything, but I'm pretty sure the first step into getting your budget passed is getting it through the budget committee. And he couldn't even do that. But you know what? He's crushing it in other ways. I don't know. We'll find those ways. Stock trading, insider stock trading, he's big on that. If you are here, like and share the stream right now, guys. Support this show. On Wednesday, we had a wonderful bonus episode. We dug into Pope Leo. We talked all about David Hogg. We talked about Medicaid cuts. We talked about Luigi Mangione, the musical. If you want all of those stories and more, patreon.com/bituationroom is where you go to support me and this tiny little team that puts the show together every single week, 3 times a week, in fact. Brent and Paige, thank you so much to the patrones who've already supported the show. You're wonderful. And if you didn't know, we do live shows, and we're going to be live in Los Angeles on Friday, May 30th. That is, God, is it next Friday? Lord, it's coming up. No, in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We're going to be, I can do math. I can count days. Days are meaningful to me. It's not like they bleed one into the other. We're going to be live at the Elysian Theater with John Idarola, with council member Eunices Hernandez, with Rachel Reyes of the LA podcast, and with a representative from the Rent Brigade, which is this organization, really an ad hoc one that came together in the wake of the LA wildfires, calling out the price gouging of realtors and landlords in this time. So It's going to be such a good discussion. I really hope you guys get tickets. Wherever you're listening or watching, get tickets. Tell your people in LA, if you're not in LA, to come through. It's going to be, I hope, just one of those nights. Every live Bituation Room is just magical, and I've never been let down. And I know I'm biased because it is my own show, but like I actually really enjoy the kinds of people that I like, that I bring together, and I learn from them. We have a good time, and it's wonderful. Also, next Wednesday, Pasadena, New World Disorder at the Ice House, my monthly show where I try to make you laugh. So come out to that if you're in the Pasadena area. And with that, let me get everything correct here. But let me bring in, they are the co-editors of a new book that is out called All This Safety is Killing Us, Abolitionist Frameworks and Practices from Clinicians, Organizers, and Incarcerated Activists. I'm going to welcome family and psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, acupuncturist, assistant professor at Columbia University, passionate about racial, economic, and healthcare justice in the LGBTQIA among refugees, migrant communities, for people with substance use disorders, and for people living with HIV. Please welcome Ronica Mukerjee. Hi, Ronica. Thank you for being here. And let's bring in assistant professor in the Department of Latin American Studies and Latino Studies, the core faculty member of the Global Community Health Program at the University of California in Santa Cruz, Carlos Martinez. My old friends, both of you, my old comrades. We have Ronica and I organizing together in the early 2000s in the War on Terror, that new world order. Carlos and I in San Francisco. When I was working there at AJ Plus, we both have gone on to do such incredible work. And I'm so honored to have you here talking about this book that you guys put together, you edited, and you just got so many incredible folks to contribute to. I kind of opened the show by talking about this, but like, we are in this moment of real backlash to the George Floyd uprisings. We're also in the broader moment of backlash to the civil rights movement. We have a white nationalist presidency. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Even doing the kind of work that you guys are doing, focusing on who is disproportionately impacted by policing, is seen as politicized in this time, is seen as hurtful to white people in this time, right? It is, and I think the other aspect of why I think this compilation is so important is we're also in a time where the Democratic Party has failed to pass any meaningful legislation when it comes to, again, reforms that I know there are critiques of, but like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, failed to basically respond to any of the base, and has largely walked away from the trans community, Black and brown folks in the system. Like, they have abandoned so much of the base that honestly helped get it elected back in 2020. So it is prime to talk about this, but I just want to, we're going to talk about words like abolition, and people who are against defunding the police might be uncomfortable. So just a little bit of a red flag. But I did want to say, you guys talk about the idea that you want to challenge the idea that safety equals punishment, that in order to have a safe society, we must punish and incarcerate the so-called criminals, right? Like, just what do you mean by that? That safety equals punishment?
Yeah.
Either Carlos, you can
go for it, Ronica.
Well, I mean, the idea that punishment is happening is also part of the issue. Like, let's say that we think that punishment is happening, but we know that people believe that police keep us safe from criminals and rapists, and that the borders keep us safe from criminals and people who would like to be criminals whose languages we don't speak. Like, that is the idea that we are taught. And yet neither are true. Mm-hmm. So police do not solve 60% of all violent crimes, and they also inflict violence on people that causes long-lasting physical harm if that person is still alive. We know that many scholars, I mean, starting really in the early 90s with Leonore Boleyn Johnson, who did this testimony to Congress about police, and her presenting that approximately 40% of police officers had said that in the last 6 months prior to her survey that they had behaved violently towards their spouse or children. And we also know that police in the United States perpetrate acts of domestic violence at roughly 15 times the rate of the general population. And that's from a 2022 reporting by Andrew Berman, who based his work on a police officer and a sociologist in Tucson. So who are we calling when we have been physically or emotionally harmed? And what do we expect to happen? Yeah. Also, we do not collect, sorry. Were you going to say something? No.
I said, yeah.
Yeah. Also, we do not collect statistics on violence done within police contexts, jails, arrests at all. So, and especially now that we no longer have a very robust morbidity and mortality weekly report, which was like, this national reporting of health, basically, in all of these states. We're not going to have that information. But even when it existed, even when we had the mechanisms for that kind of violence to be reported, we know that over half of police violence was not reported to the National Vital Statistics System. Yeah. Also, the border is a place where violence is very, like lots of people are like, we need to keep people out. But what about the people who are already inside? We know that people who live near the border, who are Latina and Native, live approximately 2 years less than populations nationwide. That's not safe.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that the other thing that what your book basically, I mean, the premise also is not looking at the prison system from the standpoint of people who are not in it. Meaning we often always think about, the crime and the criminals and what about my community? And you guys are actually humanizing the people who are disproportionately incarcerated and impacted by it. And, you in your opening talk about, look, we incarcerate more people in this country than any other country. 20% of the world's population we incarcerate, $182 billion a year. And you then really talk about the public health impact of this amount of our incarceration. And Carlos, I want to kick it to you. Why do we need to study the public health impact of this mass system of policing and incarceration? What is the importance of that? And we just beyond, we know we criminalize the mentally ill. We know we criminalize disabled people. We know we criminalize drug addicts. We know we criminalize the unhoused. So start from there. Say more about that and why we need to look at this.
Right. I mean, to your point, first of all, we, as you said, incarcerate more people, right, than anywhere, any other country in the planet, and we are not safer, or we have less safety and more crime, or more like homicide rates actually than other countries that incarcerate far less people, that invest far fewer resources in policing, right? These policing systems don't protect us in the ways that we think they do, first of all, right? And I think the point of the book, as you said, we kind of talk a lot about the ways in which police violence obviously harms, right? Like that's something that we are very well aware of, for better or for worse, in our current era, right? We know that police violence is a very real issue, but there's all these other cascading effects of policing and of incarceration that are not just at the point of the shooting of the gun, right? That impact in all these other myriad ways. And actually all this public health research has been really devoting a lot of resources and time to showing that and demonstrating that. So we know, for example, that men who have experienced more policing in their lives have are 3 times more likely to experience symptoms of PTSD. Right? If you just live in a neighborhood with more invasive policing practices, you're more likely to have hypertension, to be someone who has diabetes, who suffers from a range of chronic illnesses, right? And so there's a lot of reasons for all these things. Policing is also the fact that we invest and overinvest in over-policing means that we are also disinvesting in systems that could actually support our health, that could actually support public health, right? So it's the policing itself, right, and the incarceration itself, and all these things, but it's also at the same time the simultaneous disinvestment in actual systems that could produce actual safety, actual health for our communities. And I think that's what we're trying to demonstrate in this book, but also not just with statistics, like I'm dropping on you, right, like with the real stories, as you said, from the folks who are impacted by these systems.
And now that we're in this, HHS secretary is RFK Jr. moment, I mean, it's Ronica, to your point about even tracking some of the ways, the impacts of, even things like gun violence, right? But certainly, I think when the Black Lives Matter movement, was kicking off back in 2014, one of the other things that we realized is that there wasn't any statistics for police shootings, that we didn't know who was being brutalized or killed. And then beyond that, to Carlos, your point of what then are the impacts of, the carceral system on people or policing on communities. Like, what are you guys worried about in terms of what we will no longer know going forward, given that we were only just beginning to have some data about the impacts of 2 million people inside the prison system?
Well, I worry about, I'm sorry. Yeah. I worry about anyone who's using substances. I worry about anybody who uses syringes or needles. We know that infectious disease goes up when administrations are more conservative. And, I want to make another point about the sort of sciencey part of things, which is that what we also know is that policing affects our genetics, and history of oppression and imprisonment affects our genetics. So, there was a 2018 study on indirect or unfair treatment by police in communities, and they looked at telomeres, which make our cells, right? They're like the genetic material, the DNA strands that make our cells. And what they found is that in Black men who lived in communities with unfair policing, that they were aging and their cells were aging as a result of exposure to this policing. And that was not happening to white people who lived in those communities, right? We also know that there's been weathering of indigenous populations as a result of boarding schools, as a result of reservations. And the other thing that I think is super important to know is that we see racial disparities disappear within prisons. That people have equal access to healthcare within prisons and not before. And we're talking about Black and white people, not before and not after, right? And that people, when they're released from prison, opioid overdose is the leading cause of death tenfold over the general population. That from people being released from women's prisons, it's 40 times higher suicide rates. So all of this stuff is only going to get worse within a carceral administration, which is what we have.
Yeah, I think what's concerning to me, just to kind of respond to your question about RFK and this whole mess that we're in now as well. I think, obviously, so the thing with people like RFK, right, is that they're kind of obsessed with these minute sort of interventions, like food colorings and things like that, right? As if removing that is going to suddenly kind of, improve the health of the population on a mass level, right? When and by doing that, they're really ignoring kind of the research that has been, as you said, kind of getting done more in recent years, which is looking at what we call the social determinants of health, right? The social inequalities, which are actually, as we understand now, the primary factors in determining who lives longer and who dies earlier than they should, right? And so, I mean, there's just a mass defunding of anything that has to do with inequity, with social inequality, and you can't even literally use those terms if you're trying to get funded anymore by the NIH. So I've personally already seen this and experienced this. Grants getting defunded that I've been, with projects I've participated with that are looking at those issues. I mean, that's all kind of going by the wayside now, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and exactly, it's that, again, the very idea of talking about whether it's the healthcare system or the prison system disproportionately harming Black and brown people, women, queer people, which I think is really important. One of the things you guys also mentioned is like the number, like we tend to talk about like trans issues and queer issues as if they're sort of cultural or whatever the hell that is, a culture war, but that like actually disproportionately trans people are incarcerated and targeted, I think really needs to be named. And I'm glad you guys do that here. But yeah, even just studying this is off the table. And I do think it's really relevant that you guys come out with this book. It feels to me like an answer to, again, what was happening in 2020, which really intersected both of what you guys have studied, which is, people for the first time actually thinking about prison abolition, looking at the way the police operate, looking at the way, it had been a long time coming, again, years of this BLM movement that finally bubbled up into, this mass uprising. And it was no accident that it happened under, again, a lot of lockdown orders, because we were in a public health crisis and public health officials were absolutely nowhere to be found. And the only resources we saw were resources in the cops, used to repress us, used to kill us. And so in a flash of just in a moment, we saw, the completely backwards national priorities that this country had, and a vision of perhaps where we could actually move going forward. And so I think that's why you guys talking to people who actually have this experience is really, really, really critical. Maybe before we keep on going, you can tell me like what, as you meld these two worlds of both public policy on health policy and like looking at prison abolition, really remaking, changing, completely upending what we conceive of as safety in currently. What is this word health abolition? What does that mean? What is health abolition? What is that all about? Whomever, Ronica, if you want to start.
Yeah. I think of it as like abolition is health justice. I don't care what you call it, but that's what I think of it as, because it is really trying to focus on the justice that we all need within the healthcare system and is, we know, missing, right? And as a healthcare provider, I know, and I want more clinicians to know, that our jobs are not to report people to the police or authorities who can arrest them. It's not to report the trans person who's using the bathroom that you don't think they should be using, right? Because trans people's lives have become increasingly illegal. And I know that we think we do these kinds of reporting to protect others, but we actually do this to make ourselves feel better and more moral in a perceived crisis. And that's one of the fundamental problems with healthcare, is it's sort of looking at morality as what is perceived to be safe or good within a clinical setting, right? That includes medications, whether or not people are taking their medications, et cetera. But one of the major things I think about in healthcare and other fields too is mandatory reporting. And mandatory reporting is this legal obligation for healthcare workers, teachers, lots of people to report suspected or confirmed cases of abuse or neglect. In New York, it's children, elders, people with disabilities. The laws are different in different states. But what we know is that millions of people and families are disrupted by investigations that result from reporting. And they do not lead to proof of maltreatment. And you could say, okay, well, we need to prove things better. But before we do that, if that's what we need to do, then before we start reporting people, the systems need to be better so that families are actually helped. And ways of like, we know that one of the things that increases like a person hitting their child is lack of childcare, right? An inability to have childcare. But we also know that mandatory reporting does not make things better. 50% of people, survivors, report that it made things worse. 12% that it was a little worse, or sorry, 50% say it got a lot worse, 12% a little worse, and 20% no change. So 82% of people are not seeing any improvement as a result of their case being reported.
It's almost like the way that, sorry to interrupt you, it reminds me of the way we talked about, and we still talk about, sort of the school to prison pipeline that I think became very popularized. But we didn't talk about like the healthcare to prison pipeline and the ways that, again, on top of the baked in discrimination, bigotry, the different ways that, Black and brown and queer bodies are treated in terms of pain, in terms of all that aside, it's like, you're seeing it in real time with, women who are in need of abortion care who have the cops called on them for suspicion of performing an abortion on themselves. I mean, this is stuff I reported on El Salvador. Now it came home to roost, of course, because we're only importing the worst things from El Salvador. But like, it's the same shit where it's like, and same with also the policing of trans people, again, as you said, becoming increasingly illegal. It's like, okay, trans care now, medical care is increasingly in this, healthcare to criminal pipeline. And so it seems like health abolition, I mean, that's what I'm starting to understand that as a like, our medical infrastructure, to say nothing of the private health care infrastructure, it really does funnel people and criminalize people. But Carlos, take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the 2020 kind of political moment, because that's really like where this book was kind of birthed from that political moment, right? And what I think really inspired this book and the movements that really inspired the book, right? Which was like a lot of folks in public health, in medical spaces that were really starting to interrogate like their fields and the ways in which the health system is entangled with policing in the prison, industrial complex in all these various ways, and mandatory reporting being one of them, but also policing within emergency room hospitals, for example. So there's all these ways that policing shows up and is, mixed in as part of the healthcare system that a lot of people are unaware of, actually, frankly, still, unless, you're like a low income person of color. And then in that scenario, this very well, actually, right? Like the hospital setting can be highly traumatizing, actually, because it is essentially a carceral kind of policing space, right? And so this book was really like, when we put the call out to a bunch of people to submit stuff, and I mean, the response was like so overwhelming because there was this really, this desire to really, like look in the mirror and understand what we need to do as people in the public health and clinical fields to really confront this, right?
Yeah.
And
tell me then, like, either or give me your favorite examples from the book, because I think you also say, like, this is about putting into practice what we're talking about. It's not just, hey, one day we'll have abolition and we'll have, alternatives to policing. We'll have, because actually that's the other thing, that the other way that health abolition intersects for me as I learn about it from the outside is like, when I believe in defunding the police, when I say that, I also am pro putting money into mental health emergency, response teams, so that people who are going through mental health episodes and crises are not murdered, and are actually treated with people who are not cops, but actually have real training in people going through mental health crises. And I know you guys actually highlight, or the contributors highlight some of that, but are there examples where you're like this? Because all we've heard since 2020 is, wow, Portland tried to defund the police and it didn't work. And it's like, first of all, they didn't, it was like decriminalization of certain substances, whatever. And it's, so we're again with this backlash, but you guys actually point out, places where these alternatives to policing and to the carceral system, public health policy first, like, are working, are helping. Can you explain some of those?
Well, I think there's a couple things I think about. One is restorative justice programs. Some of them can definitely interface with police departments and courts, which can be helpful for people who are already involved, right? Like, the idea isn't that we don't understand how systems work and we don't interface with systems because we don't feel like it, and we're anti-systems because other people are interfacing with those systems, right? They have no choice but to interface with those systems. So abolition isn't not, abolition is also helping people navigate those systems in ways that reflect the ideas of abolition, right? And there are so many restorative justice programs that do that. And there are, crisis response numbers all over the country where, there are alternatives to 911. Also, harm reduction is a huge place. Syringe exchange programs, also safe injection facilities, which, I really worry about being accessible to people. Yeah. And, the other thing I thought, this isn't like a movement thing, but I think it's a thought process that we need to really incorporate, is Liat Ben-Moshe in the book. She's a disability justice activist and scholar who's amazing, talks about carceral sanism, which is this idea that disability justice activists will talk about sometimes, where they're like, people with mental health disabilities shouldn't be in solitary confinement. But that actually doesn't address that solitary confinement and prisons shouldn't exist at all. And yes, we need to think about whether or not people with mental health disabilities are in these environments, but we need to think about them from the real holistic perspective as well.
Yeah, I'll just add that there's like a ton of examples in the book, which is why people should buy it and read it, right? Or get it at the library, as you said. But I mean, really, like, we have contributions from, obstetrician gynecologists, for example, who have an excellent chapter talking about what Ronica was actually mentioning, which is like this mandated reporting, this kind of a toxicology screening that happens very often in those in neonatal, environments, where which are very arbitrary and highly racialized, and who gets a toxicology screening very often. And they talk about this idea of mandated supporting as an alternative to mandated reporting, right? Like, we need to be thinking about what is our response when we actually do encounter people who are, using substances, who are pregnant, right? Or who are experiencing abuse, and that we need to be shifting where the direction that we move in. And as you said, we have, there's non-police response, emergency responses, and we have a great chapter on that. And so, there's actually like countless interventions and points of intervention. And I think that's the other real thing, that's the overall point of the book too, is like, sure, we're in this moment, this national moment, where we are not going to see movement on a federal level around any of this, right? Like, we are totally sidelined politically now, and yet there are all these spaces of points of intervention that we, as people working in these systems, can actually implement, right? Or at least fight for.
Yeah, I mean, and shout out to Naomi Schoenfeld, who is the partner of Nato Green, good friend of the show, who wrote a chapter on San Francisco and some of those interventions versus calling the cops, a place that is it sort of lives as a fixture in the mind of the right as like completely beyond repair and unsolvable. And I guess I also wanted to bring this back to the Democratic Party a little bit, and because I do think that the kinds of ideas that this book is putting out, the Democratic Party thinks are dangerous, that they're scared of. Abolition is a scary idea to the Dems. You can't even, again, when I say defund the police, which I think is I think that's a moderate slogan. It literally is a moderate slogan. I don't care what anyone says. It actually, it tells you how it's going to happen it's like in the actual slogan. And the rest of the slogan would be just like, and move money into X, Y, and Z thing. But the Democratic Party, and I think we're seeing it play out by allowing the right to control the narrative around policing and justice and crime. They have allowed ICE to flourish, to get even more of a budget, and to now terrorize communities across this country, no matter whether it's a blue state, a sanctuary city, it don't matter. They're doing it literally everywhere. And Democrats have absolutely no response to this moment, no alternative vision, quite frankly, no alternative vision to the rounding up of immigrants. I mean, it's like, well, do it the right way. And like, but what are you even talking about? So, all of it really makes, I think, especially for radicals and younger folks being politicized, it makes ripe territory for people to be like, no, I'm going to dream a little bit bigger. I actually kind of want more. Like, I'm going to think outside of these, really fucked up parameters. There's no question here. I'm just
yeah.
Well, I mean, we're in this place because cishet, white, people who believe that citizenship is something you deserve, that kind of white supremacy has taken over every aspect of our lives, right? Yeah. And able-bodied people who just think that people with disabilities are like irritating and can't talk about, and so many people who don't have those identities can't talk about people who are any different than them. They can't talk about trans people. They don't know how to talk about people who have disabilities. They don't know how to talk about people who aren't citizens. And we need to realize that our strength would come from unity of all of these things, not debating the quote unquote idea of identity politics, but realizing that where we actually have power is within all of the differences between us, which is really what the right wing is relying on, is that we will never do that,
Yeah. I'll just add, what I understand, like people might like, look at our book and think like, this is way too radical. And for a political moment, it's just way too radical. But I think, what people really need to understand is that like what we're experiencing right now, the essentially fascism, right? It's the precondition for it are the carceral systems that have already been getting built and put into place over decades, right? Like, none of this would be possible without a ginormous, Department of Homeland Security that has the capacities to do what it's doing right now, right? And so people really, I think, need to understand like this was built brick by brick over successive administrations, unfortunately, right? And with a philosophy that is actually, unfortunately, conjoined both parties, right? And we really, really need to break with that, right? And abolition, is itself going to be a long-term process, right? That is also going to be built brick by brick, right? Over time. And so we also need to be patient with what abolitionism it can be, knowing that it's not going to happen tomorrow, right?
It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I also think that the case that abolition makes, and I think the case that you guys lay out in your book too, is that reformism is actually quite dangerous and can re-entrench some of the worst aspects of the industry, and it is an industry of locking people up. And I think when you talk about healthcare, like, I think people have no problem, especially in this country, thinking about private healthcare and why it needs to be abolished, right? I'm going to mute whichever train is doing it. Whoever got the train in the background, which I love that there's still trains, by the way. No, the idea that like, look, the private healthcare industry has completely forfeited the right to do healthcare anymore. We need to abolish it. That is my feeling. That is the Medicare for All vision, in my opinion. It is single payer. It is the government will pay it. You can still exist as an entity, but you can't make a profit on this. And that I think is a very easy concept to grasp. Obviously, we're living in a post-Luigi moment, where even right-wingers were like, that kind of see his point, because healthcare is fuck me. And if we can apply that same logic to things like the prison industrial complex, right? It's like, no, we have completely forfeited the right to do justice humanely at all. We need complete reimagining of policing, of whatever, if putting people in cages even still exists, but we still need a different vision than that. Restorative justice, as Ronica, you mentioned. So, I mean, I love it. If there's any final thoughts you guys have, where can people get the book or see you guys? Are you guys going to be on tour? I saw a couple of shots, and I think you guys were tour.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we just rounded up a bunch of events on the East Coast in New York, and we have a bunch of dates coming up in the Bay and in LA at the end of June. So
North Carolina in July, in Nashville, and Denver, Colorado, and also in June. So.
That's amazing. Can you tell me is there a website where people can go to check all the dates out?
You can find us on Instagram, and also North Atlantic Books. North Atlantic Books is our publisher. They are usually reposting like our events, so go follow them on Instagram. And if you can't find Ronica or me on Instagram, you can look up North Atlantic Books, and you'll find our events there.
What are your handles, Ronica Mukerjee and Carlos Martinez?
It's elect_ronically. I thought it was clever.
People won't even get mine unless you're Salvadorian, which is Cipote Martinez Graham. Cipote is like the Salvadorian word for like young person, which I'm not young anymore, but it's just, sort of like a term of endearment.
We'll link to them. Don't you guys worry about it. We'll link to you guys. And thank you so much for this. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for breaking it down. Everybody, please go try and see them. Be part of also just like community building. Hey, these are events in person. It's about reading and shit. And I hope, and I'm assuming, bringing together some of the contributors who also, I mean, again, these are folks with practice. These are practitioners. These are healthcare workers who, I mean, a lot of times we like to sort of pie in the sky, like, well, I don't know if people really want help. It's like, well, you've never actually been in the streets talking to them, You've never been in, clinics. You have not done this hard work, and you two are two folks who have. So thank you so much, and appreciate you and love to see you.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's great being here.
Take care, you guys. Thank you, everybody, for sticking through this as well. Hanging on. Again, old comrades come through the Bituation Room from time to time and show me that they're actually still crushing it and still doing beautiful work and bringing people together around concepts that when I was 19, 20 was getting, familiarized with. And abolition has not changed, y'all. And in fact, I would argue the case is stronger than ever. And just as the case for things like a actual public health infrastructure is stronger than ever under this the tutelage of a Kennedy that will not die. My God. The one Kennedy. Guys, we've got more show, everybody. So send in your super chats because I will be reading your comments as we continue on through this little hell world. Let's talk about it. Sean Combs is in prison. He's in New York. I believe he might be locked up. And again, I realize we're going from talking about abolishing prisons to talking about someone who probably should be in one. That irony is not lost on me. But I would also argue that we would never allow an abuser like Diddy to get this fucking big and be so unaccountable once we actually have once we actually hold people with power to account. However, this week, Puff Daddy's, I can't believe I just called him, but whatever, fucking whatever you want to call him. Psycho rap mogul, his ex-girlfriend Sierra, who, sorry, not Sierra, Cassie, who, I'm sorry, Sierra, I don't know why I'm all over the place right now. The point is that Cassie testified in court at Diddy's hearing because Diddy is facing, I believe, 5 federal charges of sex trafficking and sexual assault. And Cassie has been in court. She is very pregnant. She's her third child, and she's been testifying to what has been going on, like what was going on, what happened, and without sort of reading all of the intense back and forth of this case. Basically, she was kept in an abusive relationship for 11 years. She was subjected to all kinds of, again, sexual assault, drug addiction. She did a lot of ketamine, apparently, opiates, to basically deal with the amount of trauma that she was living in, being with Diddy and being subjected to his like psychotic sex parties where he hired male escorts to have sex with his girlfriend, who he then probably told he loved. It did massive psychological damage to her. This was as recently as 2018. She had suicidal thoughts as recently as 2023 is when she actually decided to seek help for all of this. She decided to speak out for it. 2024, last year, was when we saw the video of Sean Combs punching, dragging, and abusing Cassie in a hotel room in Los Angeles. That was surveillance footage that was made available. And it's been a wild ride. The craziest part about the story also is she testified that in 2018, when she finally broke up with him, I think they were dating in 2009. This had been going on for, again, a decade. When she broke up with him, she said it was a cordial breakup. They talked, they went out to dinner. Then he drove her home and then he raped her. So, real stand-up guy, utter piece of shit. And because pieces of shit like to stick together, Sean Combs is now asking yet another sexual abuser, convicted sexual abuser. What was it, $98 million of a settlement? Sexual abuser, Donald Trump also happens to be president somehow, asking him for some help. Now, this makes all the sense in the world. Sean Combs' allies are actively working for a Trump pardon. This makes all the sense in the world. Why? Because Eric Adams looking for a pardon from Donald Trump. In fact, has gotten his case largely dismissed, despite all of the prosecutors who are resigning because they refuse to not pursue this case against Eric Adams for bribery. So no, but it worked for him because he made a deal with Trump. He's like, you can run roughshod all over the people in New York City, lock them up. I don't give a shit. Tom Homan is my, I will work for him and I will sacrifice the people of New York. And in exchange, he got a deal. He's being held by the DOJ over it. And somehow this is not everyday news, right? So, of course, Diddy is actually asking Donald Trump for the same treatment. Longtime Combs associates have spent months cozying up to Trump officials to lay groundwork for clemency pleas. And we've seen the photos of them. Diddy and Trump kind of, came up in the same tacky ass, objectifying women fucking worlds, right? One in the music world, trying to control young talent like Cassie, and then one in the real estate beauty pageant world, Donald Trump. Similar things, similar worlds. They've got many, many photos together. Earlier this week, this is from the Rolling Stone, The Onion ran a piece headline, Sean Combs asked for a quick trial so he can get to the part where Trump pardons him. It may be onto something. Combs, who was charged last September, is currently on trial in the Southern District of New York on sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy charges. But starting after Donald Trump won the presidential election in November, close associates of the mogul got to work on cozying up to Trump land. During the presidential transition and in the opening months of Trump's second administration, several longtime friends and allies of Combs who've known the rapper for many years began reaching out to some Trump transition and administration officials, as well as to others close to the president. Two sources familiar with the matter and another person briefed on it tell Rolling Stone. The sources spoke on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the situation and on the conditions that Rolling Stone not name certain individuals involved with them. Quote, he's willing to do anything to get out of jail, a source who has known Combs for a decade tells Rolling Stone. He's always been this way. He's always going to do what he has to do to get out of a situation. He doesn't even like Donald Trump, they add. The sources describe the conversations as ongoing and preliminary, with one of the people familiar with that matter characterizing it as Diddy world making connections with Trump's team. Spokesperson for Combs did not return Rolling Stone's request for comment, nor to the White House. To those on both sides of these conversations, the point is obvious. People who've known the rapper producer for years are ingratiating themselves to individuals who have the president's ear in the hopes that this lays the groundwork and sets up senior level lines of communication if Team Combs needs to plea for a pardon or commutation. I mean, I don't know what Diddy could offer Trump. Maybe some of his homes. Like, hey, do you want the place where I abuse people? Would you like a bottle of lube? I got a lot of those. I'm not really sure what he could offer Trump at this point, right? I mean, Eric Adams is currently the mayor. Blackmailing him seems a little bit more advantageous. Sam Bankman-Fried, again, I believe also in the same facility as Combs and I think Luigi Mangione. Sam Bankman-Fried also is definitely trying to get a deal. He was already sentenced, though, so we'll see on this. But, if it means that it gives any more credence to Trump's meme coin being legit or that anything in the crypto world is legit, we're going to see it happen. So every disgusting abuser, high-level white-collar criminal crook is going to do this. This is what they're going to try to do. And including you've got Andrew Tate coming back to the States, being welcomed with open arms because he's a real alpha male. If Team Combs needs to plead for a pardon or commutation, there's no evidence that Trump is personally aware of any of these conversations, and the president has not publicly weighed in on Combs' criminal charges or prosecution, but the number of senior Trump officials who are aware of it have expressed deep reservations about commuting a possible Combs sentence given the severity of the charges. One of Combs' close associates have some experience with presidential pardons and commutations. Corey Jacobs, a senior advisor to Combs and trusted friend from his teenage years, walked free from prison when then President Barack Obama granted him clemency in December 2016. He had been serving a life sentence for drug charges. Combs said, okay, I guess that was Obama. So, I'm fine with that. Like, that doesn't bother me. Combs has had his life on the line, too. He's desperate to be released from the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He's moved for a speedy trial, turned down a plea deal, and pleaded not guilty to the 5 federal counts against him. If convicted, he faces 15 years to life in prison. During the private outreach to members of the Trump's government and social orbit, Combs' allies have tried to paint the rapper's prosecution in decidedly Trumpian terms, playing to the Republican vision of the president as a martyr and a perennial victim. In their he and Trump are both successful businessmen and controversial celebrities who've been unfairly targeted by the feds and prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, and they've each had to deal with a barrage of sexual assault allegations, and each insists they are false. The words deep state came up once or twice, said one of the sources familiar with the outreach. Oh God, the deep state is after Combs. So first of all, what's interesting is a few months ago, P. Diddy was also claiming that it was racism that it was taking him down. It's like, no, buddy, it's your victims. It's your victims who are finally speaking out. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was the LAPD getting a hold of that surveillance video of you brutalizing your girlfriend. And you got to wonder, they knew this stuff was going on. Of course they've known shit was going on with Diddy, right? And so it's only when the LAPD had surveillance video that got released that everyone saw, they were like, I guess we got to do something, right? Again, this is in a very post-Me Too backlash time. And so the fact that he was even detained and even has a case against him now shows just the scope and the gravity of what he did and the amount of people. Cassie is one of, I think, 5 defendants, victims of Combs, who are going to come forward and are going to speak. She's obviously the most high profile person, being a singer herself, which another aspect of all of this is, like, I loved Cassie's music, even though I did get her confused with Ciara earlier. However, like, Cassie's only had like 1 or 2 major banger hits. And in part because she testified to the fact that she had all of these unreleased songs because Diddy was also her producer. He was controlling her in her career. And also basically, made her a slave to his, like, again, disgusting sexual proclivities. So it's just so funny that he's like, well, the racism card didn't work because nobody's really buying that. Now let's go with the deep state card. I love Diddy, Trump said in an Apprentice episode. He's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy, he adds, before asking a contestant and former artist for Combs, Aubrey O'Day, a singer in Danity Kane, is he a good guy? Quote, I don't want to answer that question, she responded, to which the future president said that he's going to stick up for him anyway. For years, O'Day alluded to the alleged Combs misconduct. The answer to what happens if you don't do what executives want, I'm the full-blown fucking story of that, she said on Instagram. Again, that's former Danity Kane singer Aubrey O'Day, hinting that she will testify. She will testify also in Combs' trial in the coming weeks. Combs has also been an outward fan of Trump's over the years. Trump's been spotted at parties, including the birthday bashes on Combs' 2006 track We Gon' Make It. Combs name drops his fellow mogul. Quote, I spend absurd money, private bird money, that Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Bloomberg money, Combs raps. In 2015, months after Trump launched his presidential campaign, Combs told the Washington Post, Trump is a friend of mine. He works very hard. 2 months before 2016's victory, the rapper said on MSNBC, I think Black communities got shortchanged during the Obama presidency. And he added, Obama did an excellent job, however. So again, they go way back, just, sort of, flagellating one another on either side. I'm just making sure my guests are all squared away and all good. It's absolutely disgusting and terrifying. And people are already trying to tear down Cassie and be like, why didn't she leave this abusive relationship? I mean, you're seeing a similar sort of Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, weird, BS play out. Obviously all the right-wing echo chambers love it. So I think it's going to be even more awful as the trial plays out and the real, the machinery of the right's misogyny starts kicking into high gear and people start casting doubt on these victims and say they didn't actually experience what they experienced. Anywho, that's fun. That's fun. Manny Spinoza, thank you for the super chat. Albany Mountain Life. The rich pay off their victims, never held accountable. That crap is allowed for this rampage. Rampant grape culture. Thank you, friend, for stepping out on your own. Yeah, man. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, what's interesting is that Cassie did settle. I mean, Cassie got a settlement, but clearly that didn't prevent her from actually testifying in these federal crimes. So yeah, man, it's really, really disgusting. And we will see. We will see if he strikes a deal with Donald Trump. What can he offer him? Again, I don't even want to imagine Donald Trump with a bottle of lube. Very upsetting. This is just fun, guys. We're in a week where the House GOP has been trying to gut Medicaid. We know that their new budget bill, which did not pass even their budget committee, oopsies, that they would have, in fact, if they do pass it, which I'm assuming they will, that the estimates are that 10.3 million people will be kicked off Medicaid. And simultaneously, in the same week, Mike Johnson can unironically and without any shame go in front of the world, the nation, and say that Congress has a right to trade stock because they don't have enough money and they're really struggling to pay. Do you have your health care paid for? Yes, they do. So you got one thing that millions of Americans don't. But here he is making this case on why they would never ban stock trading for Congress people.
Well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean,
just leave then. I love this. Wait. Okay, so well, if you adjust for inflation, $174,000 a year isn't enough, plus all of our benefits, plus our housing and whatnot. That's not enough for us to survive. Okay. And by the way, they still want to give one another, everybody a raise, which is really funny. And it's like, maybe try doing something for your constituents, and then we would be like, okay, you deserve a raise. But if we're your boss, you're not cutting it. In fact, all you're doing is taking away from working people. That's the only thing that's been going on. That's the only thing you've been good at. And so here he is going like, well, if you adjust for inflation, it's not enough. I mean, set aside the amount of money that our campaign coffers are getting from all kinds of super PACs, dark money, all of the all of the corporate interests, all of the different sectors that are funneling money into all of my campaigns every couple years, right? All of the kickbacks that I receive. And, it's actually not that much money. And so he's asking us to have a little bit of empathy for him. Come on, Mikey. Oh, Mikey.
Has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And
raise the minimum wage, you fuck. Raise the minimum wage. What's the minimum wage? What is it? Still $7.25? Come on.
Over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress.
The extreme sacrifice, how can you imagine? Can you imagine less qualified people running for Congress? Lauren Boebert? Can you imagine less qualified people running for Congress? Nancy Mace? Matt Gaetz? I guess he left. George Santos? I guess he left. Less qualified than that? You'll vote for anything. You will anoint anyone as long as you go after the trans and get a big AR-15 in your campaign video. Like, less qualified. Is this a threat? Are you threatening us with less qualified people? Because I'm almost sure we've reached the bottom. I mean, it can get worse. I mean, we can just be openly huffing glue, we can openly be eating, paint chips, not just privately eating paint chips. Don't get me wrong. But I love this as a threat. Like, you're going to get fewer qualified. Just go to the private sector. Leave. Buddy, nobody's forcing you to be here. Don't run for re-election. Give up your seat. Do you not want to be here?
It's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to, take care of their family.
At least let them engage in some stock trading. I mean, at least all you can do, could you just give us a little handout? At least let them engage in some insider trading upon, with the corporations and the very sectors and industries that they're ostensibly legislating around, and either foregoing regulations on or not, or at least let us buy some Palantir stock the day before the Trump administration signs a massive DHS deal with Palantir to develop surveillance for anyone that breathes in this country. At least allow us to do that. At least allow us to sell off stock when we know that we're going to be cutting the federal funding for this certain industry. Like, come on. How are we supposed to not do anything if you don't give us an economic incentive? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. The audacity of this person. But it doesn't end there. This is my favorite part. Here is Mike Johnson defending something that he, by his own admission, has no idea how it works. So in the same press conference, Mike Johnson is asked about Donald Trump's meme coin. Now, Donald Trump has actively been selling a cryptocurrency from the office of the presidency, from the Oval Office. He's been doing this. Let's take a look at it. Just in the end of April, he was offering a dinner to the top meme coin holders, the top 25 of them. The website for Trump meme coin says its 220 biggest holders are invited to a private gala on May 22nd, the most exclusive invitation. According to crypto trading platform Coinbase, $Trump, like he's fucking Kesha must be so mad, jumped by more than 70% after that announcement. Just after that announcement. But it remains well below the record high of more than $74 reached shortly after its launch in January. The digital currency is one of several crypto-related ventures started by businesses linked to Trump, who has called himself the crypto president. Again, the tokens circulating are currently worth around $2.5 billion. They were released just before his inauguration on January 20th. Look at this. Have dinner with President Trump. Does that look anything like fucking Donald Trump? Who is this guy? What is this? What kind of AI bullshit is that? First of all, we know he's on the Ozempic, or I'm sorry, the fat shot drug. You know, the fat shot drug. So obviously, Melania also has a cryptocurrency. We also have signed the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, the digital asset stockpile. And somehow this is all fine and good with the Democratic Party. Hang on, I will get to that story in half a second. But first, let it be known that Mike Johnson sees nothing wrong with selling a cryptocurrency and meme coin from the office of the president. There's nothing to hide, even though by his own admission, he has no idea what is happening.
Mr. Speaker, you were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry as a result of it. Are you equally concerned about President Trump's family's business dealings, especially given the fact that he is in a region now where his family has billions of dollars of investments in Doha and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that he has a crypto business now where he's auctioned off access to the White House for the highest bidder in his meme?
Okay, the question, if you can't hear it well, is basically you were very upset at the possibility that Hunter Biden would use his status as the son of the former vice president to, you know, work with Burisma or get any money or any jobs, right? And yet here is the president using the Oval Office as basically his own personal piggy bank and selling a fake currency as president. Does that concern you at all?
Look, there are authorities that police executive branch ethics rules. I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is here in the House. Okay, I'll say that the reason many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it, and they repeatedly lied about it, and they set up shell companies, and the family was all engaged and getting all on the dole. Whatever the President Trump is doing is out in the open. They're not trying to conceal anything.
Mr. Speaker, the investment in the meme coin.
Wait, hang on. What's my favorite part about this is, well, if you do bribes in the open, they can't be bribes. If you openly solicit money, nobody can accuse you of soliciting. What? How does that make it any better? If it's still a crime, it's still illegal, it still violates the emoluments clause. We had Walter Schaub, who resigned under the first administration on this show multiple times. The Office of Government Ethics, the disclosures, the withholding. In fact, Paige, our producer, did a story on this very thing. I gotta read more of this, but let's just finish. Let's just hear him out.
Folks are not transparent. We do not know who those people are.
I don't know anything about the meme coin thing. I don't know. I can just tell you that, I mean, President Trump has had nothing to hide. He's very upfront about it, and there are people who watch all the ethics of that. But I mean, I've got to be concerned with running the House of Representatives, and that's what I do.
Oversight, though, that's the congressional responsibility, isn't it?
Congress has oversight responsibility, but I think, so far as I know, the ethics are all being followed. So yes, sir.
Okay, wait a minute. As far he's got nothing to hide. I have no idea how it works. I don't know how it works. I don't know anything about this meme coin. But if Donald Trump is doing it, then it's probably fine. It's probably all on the up and up. Do we understand what is happening right now? I mean, he's probably getting a kickback himself, but this is freaking wild. And I did want to, because Page of this show worked on this piece, is a very, very in-depth piece about the VIP seat at Donald Trump's crypto dinner cost $2 million. Wired tracked how they did it. 10 days from now, 220 crypto investors will sit down to a lavish three-course dinner and enjoy, quote, stunning views of the Potomac River with U.S. President Donald Trump at his 600-acre golf club in Washington, D.C. To earn an invitation, all they had to do was buy a boatload of the president's crypto coin. The dinner was announced April 23rd. We talked about that. Attendees were selected based on who had spent the most on Trump and held their coins the longest between the announcement date and the deadline, 1:30 p.m. Eastern today. This was, I think, yesterday. 225 qualifying attendees had to hold or purchase at least 4,196 units of Trump coin worth about $55,000 at the time of writing. The 25 largest holders will enjoy an even more intimate experience, including a VIP tour, an exclusive reception before dinner with your favorite president. Want to bet it's like, it's not him. It's just like, hey, we exhumed the body of Reagan. To qualify for the reception, these VIPs held around 325,000 Trump coins, on average worth $4.3 million as of 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The biggest spender, an investor going by the name Sun, topped the leaderboard with around $1.43 million Trump coins worth over $19 million. The wallet going by Sun sold nearly $1 million worth of Trump before the contest ended. Many have speculated whether the wallet belongs to Chinese-born billionaire Justin Sun. According to a New York Times report, the coins belong to an exchange for which Sun is a global advisor. Gee, so you're just buying with other people's money from your own fake coin market. Sun did not respond to a request for comment. Despite the scoring system favoring investors who held Trump coins the longest, the number of qualifying VIPs entered the competition at a late stage. In sixth place on the leaderboard, an investor going by the pseudonym Wu, oh God, like Wu, Sun, are these all just Chinese billionaires? Bought 1 million coins, now worth over $13 million on May 6th and sat on them until the end of the competition. At the bottom of the leaderboard, small investors fought over the final remaining dinner places. Oh my God. One investor going by the username Hehe almost doubled their Trump holdings in a series of purchases in the hours before the deadline, earning themselves a seat at the dinner. Oh my God. Nothing but honey traps. Nothing but people who just want access to this presidency. It's nothing but like Saudi princes, Gulf state princes, Chinese billionaires, Russian weapons dealers. Conversely, having comfortably secured their places, around 35 of the 220 gala attendees had already sold off nearly all their Trump holdings by Monday morning, presumably to shield themselves from any further drop in value. Analysts had predicted a slump in the prices after the spaces of the dinner were confirmed and the immediate incentive to hold the coin evaporated. Jesus Christ. In the days after trading of the meme coin began, the 20% of Trump coins released into circulation surged in value to $14 billion. On paper, Trump's net worth had increased by tens of billions of dollars overnight. So here you see they did this graph about, oh my God. I think I'm understanding this correctly. Okay, since the dinner was announced, and then how much of each coin people had. All these folks. Jesus, this is a lot of work. Good job, Paige. The value of the coin has since dropped more than 80% from its peak when Trump announced the dinner. However, it was a trade. Yeah, they fucking did it on purpose. They announced the dinner on purpose because the value of the coin was going down. And they were like, we need to figure out some way to, juke it again. And all the rubes who didn't make it to the top 25 were the ones, I mean, I don't know. I think it's also kind of a rube move to spend $19 million to have dinner with the fucking president. this is where I wanted to go. In Congress, Democratic lawmakers are attempting to push through legislation that would prevent elected officials from releasing their own meme coins to offset the risk that these coins could facilitate bribery or open the door to foreign influences. Though the Meme Act stands a little chance of being written into law because of the Republican congressional majority and the strength of Trump's hold over his party, it signals a growing discontent over the president's involvements in cryptocurrency. But are they actually that upset? I want to go to this prospect piece by David Dayen, because this also came out this week, and it doesn't seem like Democrats, especially in the Senate, hello, Chuck Schumer, they're not doing a good enough job at stopping this from happening. This is actually not from David. This is from Ryan Cooper. Senate Democrats are poised to enable Trump's crypto corruption. The cryptocurrency, they both have been covering it. The cryptocurrency industry is in the midst of a major lobbying push to get pro-crypto legislation through Congress. The sticking point is in the Senate, where to get around the filibuster's 60-vote requirement, at least 7 Democratic votes would be needed, assuming every Republican supports it. That support seemed to be forthcoming until Donald Trump started using crypto for some of his habitual mind-boggling corruption. Just days before taking office, he launched a meme coin, the Dinner. Then Trump launched his own stable coin, USD1, that is a crypto token whose value is supposedly pegged to the dollar. And in May, an Abu Dhabi investment fund announced that it would use that coin to facilitate $2 billion purchase of the crypto exchange Binance. That was too much for these Democratic senators to stomach, but not for long. Semaphore reports that pro-crypto Democrats, that is, the ones who collected millions in crypto campaign contributions, have gotten a few token concessions, but nothing whatsoever that would stop Trump's corruption spree, and this is likely enough to get it through. Sources familiar with the negotiations have confirmed to the prospect that a vote is planned for next week. As things stand, it will probably pass. It's important to remember that crypto has not ever demonstrated any legitimate business use case at scale. Overwhelmingly, it's used for pure financial speculation and crime, both scams internal and to the system, like rug pulls, pump and dumps, wash trading. It is also good old-fashioned robbery and or money laundering by drug cartels, human traffickers, North Korea. The crypto bill is just about the worst of all the worlds. As Democratic staffers and the Senate Banking Committee point out, the regulatory protections are all but meaningless. The bill says that Consumer Financial Protection Bureau protections exist, but it doesn't explicitly grant it authority over the industry, nor note that Trump has torn the guts out of the agency. And it is an attempt to shut it down entirely. It says that stable coins can't have misleading names and that suggest they are backed by the government, but it carves out USD, which is what Trump's and most of the big ones are fucking called. Worse, it effectively blows a giant hole in U.S. criminal law. Not only would stablecoins issued by foreign companies outside of American regulations be allowed to circulate on the U.S. exchanges under this bill, but they could do so even if issued by offshore companies that refuse to comply with U.S. court orders to stop terrorist financing and money laundering. But please, keep on denying students their own diplomas when they speak out about Gaza. Please keep on equating children's stars like Miss Rachel with terrorist organizations and allow an entire shadow financial market to flourish that literally enables terrorist organizations, human traffickers, the very people that the Trump administration ostensibly is locking up. I'm sorry, no. Those are just law-abiding grandmothers who are just checking in with immigration enforcement. This is insane. And the fact that the Democrats are, so basically what they're going to do is they're going to pass a bill that seems to be regulating crypto, but actually does not regulate crypto at all. That is what is about to happen next week. That is according to the American Prospect. In addition to allowing Trump to collect as many payments from foreign governments as they care to provide, a flagrant violation of the Constitution, by the way, and opening up a big juicy opportunity for drug dealers and terrorists the world over, this bill would further enable crypto to intertwine itself with the financial system. Wall Street firms are already getting into crypto products. As the Senate staffers point out, an independent analysis suggests that this bill would cause the stablecoin market to inflate by up to 10 times to $2 trillion. When crypto suffers another galloping financial crisis, as it did in 2022, Ryan Cooper says, I'd bet this time enough Wall Street banks and Silicon Valley firms will be at risk that they'll get a 2008 style bailout with taxpayer money, the last and biggest scam of them all. We are so fucking cooked. If Democrats do not use the power of the filibuster to stop this bill from getting through, Jesus. So effectively, there is a temporary, David Dayen covered the temporary setback, but it seems like a bill that didn't pass earlier, but it seems like next week it's going to pass. Again, with the likes of Ruben fucking Gallego. Arizona, what is going on with y'all? The cosmetic changes are being negotiated by Ruben Gallego and Mark Warner, which also be used to justify Democratic agreement with the bill. It came so late in the process that they cannot been turned into legislative text. Democrats wanted a short delay to turn that around. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is a little bit more of the details. I don't want to just dig into all of them, but the bill will work itself out next week if Republicans memorialize the changes that pro-crypto Democrats secured into the bill. That seems like the likeliest scenario. Oh my fucking God. Ruben Gallego is such a piece of shit. Not only voting for the Lincoln Riley Act, but by the way, Ruben Gallego has been actively courting the crypto industry. And this is where we need to draw the line in the sand. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love Jasmine Crockett, but she's also been pro-crypto in the past. No. There is a line. It's not sand, it's mud. We need to draw that line. You do not accept crypto money. And granted, I don't know what Jasmine Crockett's thoughts are now, but like, as one of the few fighters in Congress, we need her to reverse her previous stances. But look, unless we can mount enough pressure on Ruben Gallego between now and next week's vote, what Ryan Cooper and David Dayen just laid out is fucking terrifying. You can do stable coins, you can do meme coins. It's all on the up and up. We're just going to feign like we're doing some regulations so we can say we did regulations, but we're actually not doing any of that. Holy shit. Derek Graham, thank you for the super sticker. Mark Connor, thank you so much for becoming a member, getting all that bonus material. Jimmy Bear 420 resubscribed over on Twitch. 10 months strong. Lindsay Ann Miles. Fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine. Franny is the best. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate you. This is evil. This is what we say when we say Democrats are our enemies at this point. Like, that is an enemy ass move. I don't care. I have not seen, since the re-election of Donald Trump, I have not seen the Democratic Party actually make a case for why they should be trusted again. They've not made that case. The only one making kind of that case is AOC and Bernie Sanders. Nobody else is making that case. Maybe some Jasmine Crockett. Nobody else is making the case. They have more smoke for the 25-year-old David Hogg for trying to primary people who are asleep at the wheel, trying to primary people who are not actually fighting, than they do for Chuck Schumer and Ruben Gallego, who are about to give Donald Trump and all of the cryptocurrency fascists that are pump and dumping our entire American populace. They have more smoke for fucking David Hogg than a senator? Fuck out of here, man. This is open corruption. It is open corruption. So sick. I need to change it up a little bit, but it was a really rough night in northern Gaza. A massive bombing campaign from Israel using American weapons paid for by our tax dollars. 100 people reportedly killed overnight. Obviously, nothing is off limits. So the refugee camps have been targeted, as they've always been targeted. Women, children, the sick, people trying to flee, literally trying to flee in hospital beds. This was also the week that apparently Donald Trump was, making deals with Hamas, released an American Israeli soldier. And what was the response? More bombing. Was there any pressure on Israel? Not that we've seen. Have they changed course? No, they have not. And yet, some people have the courage to continue to speak out. Some people, like the NYU student that I mentioned, who I want to talk about in a little bit, but also Miss Rachel. You goddamn right. Miss Rachel. Child YouTube star for children. Child YouTube star is very different. Miss Rachel, who single-handedly prevented my daughter from being afraid of the doctor. Just watched the doctor episode over and over again, loved it, and then just waltzed into her 2-year appointment like it was nothing, stepped on the scale, loved it, was chill, loves a stethoscope, can say the word stethoscope, can say the word ophthalmoscope, not to brag. Miss Rachel is, initially you're like, wow, she's really got a great YouTube channel. She's really crushing it. She seems nice. She's got a very high-pitched voice. She got a beautiful singing voice. She's good with kids. Then you watch a little bit more about who this woman is, Rachel Accurso. You see how she has been posting about the starvation in Gaza, about the amputees in Gaza, the children who are being maimed. And then you listen to her on outlets like Zateo and you realize, oh, no, I actually think Miss Rachel might be an angel. And I say that as someone who's not religious. I am not religious. I really don't like when people do the God bless you or blessings and angels are among us. And you're no. I'm like, I don't know about all that. I suspend all of that anti-angel talk to talk about Miss Rachel, because after watching this interview, I am fully convinced she is an angel walking this earth. I'm giving you, this is a little bit of an insight into Zateo because I am a member, but everyone should become a member so you can get access to this full interview. I'm sure it'll be available on YouTube, but I want to watch a little bit about Rachel, Miss Rachel, because the New York Times this week had an entire article about her that actually quotes her critics that consist of the organization antisemitism.org. That is what the New York Times, the paper of record, has legitimately quoted as a critic of Miss Rachel. And they give it such a disgustingly smug, obnoxious, centrist ass, low-key, right-wing title, which is why tot celebrity Miss Rachel waded into the Gaza debate. I love the words. I love the flowery language of waded. Debate. Is there a debate? What's the debate? Genocide, no genocide? Some children do deserve to starve. Other children don't deserve to starve. Palestinian lives matter less than Israeli lives. What's the debate? What is waded? Facing criticism, Rachel Accurso defends making the plight of children in Gaza a primary focus on her social media feeds. Here she is looking adorable. And they basically talk about, all of the videos that she's posted, how she posts video of herself meeting a double amputee named Rahaf. I mean, this is so sweet. I could cry. I saw these posts. Miss Rachel talked about meeting Rahaf. She talked about meeting the mother of Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old who was murdered by the Israeli military while she was begging and calling for help from the car that her family was using to escape the violence. The car came under fire. She was calling the paramedics. The paramedics that were sent to rescue her came under fire as well. They were killed. She was killed. 6 years old. And the New York Times has the fucking audacity to say, last month, but Akurso's advocacy on behalf of Gazan children has led some supporters of Israel to accuse her of treating Palestinian children with more sympathy than Israeli ones. Oh my goodness. Why would someone treat Palestinian children with a disproportionate amount of sympathy than Israeli ones? And it might have something to do with like numbers or amount of bombs or 14,000 children being killed in 18 months. I don't know. In Israel, is there a term for a child who survives with no surviving family, minor with no surviving relatives? Is there a term for that? Because there's an acronym for that in Gaza. Is there No? Okay. Well, then that might give you a little bit of an insight into why there is different treatment of the amount of children that have been maimed, disabled, and killed from this genocide than, in Israel. The advocacy group Stop Anti-Semitism labeled Akurso the, quote, anti-Semite of the week, and the New York Post reported sent a letter urging Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate whether Akurso is receiving funding to further Hamas's agenda. Okay, can you push back on that? Then they quote antisemitism.org. Akurso said, this accusation is not only absurd, it is patently false. She said, the reason I post about Israeli children is because I care deeply about them. The accusation I would be doing it for any other reason is outrageous and wrong. She has also posted about Israeli children, by the way. So like, they don't even say. It's kind of crazy to call a children's YouTube star a Hamas agent. We're just going to have her answer that on her own. So, but I digress because we have to go back to the Zateo interview. And this is the way Francesca likes to do her episodes, is going back and forth, teasing, revealing, teasing, calling Cassie Sierra. I won't get over that because will never forgive myself for it. Here's a little bit of this interview, Hassan. She talks about how she got started in children's entertainment. She talks about how she did specific videos for her son who was late to speech. And then she talks about how she got involved with issues like Gaza. And I want to just play, I'm trying to get to that moment. So forgive me if I'm at the wrong moment here, but here we go.
Missing limbs, kids mourning their parents, parents mourning their kids. And I'm just wondering, is it something you followed always, or did you also, like millions of other Americans, come to this via social media, just seeing these horrific, tragic videos in social media?
So I didn't know much before. And I was just horrified by October 7th. And then I just tried to listen and learn. And I still am doing that with friends and people. So I had been working with Save the Children prior. When the show became successful, I got an agent, and my agent was like, tell me about what you want to do. And I was like, I want to be connected to charities, and I want to do work helping children. So I got.
Okay, let me just stop right there. She got an agent, and the agent said, what do you want to do? Right? She could have said, I want to be on Broadway. I want to tour the country. I want to, get 5 million subscribers instead of 3. I don't know her subscriber count. I think it's even more than that. I want to be on prime time. I want to have a daytime show. No. She said, and granted, she might have said those other things. I don't know. But she said, I want to be connected with charities that work for children. Hello, Hollywood agent. I'd like to connect with charities that work for children and use my massive platform to advocate for and raise money for children. That's literally what this woman said. So that's how, okay, so listen.
I got involved with Save the Children.
Great charity.
Yeah. And I was learning from their team and their CEO about a lot of things going on with children here in the US, food insecurity. I was learning about the Congo. She had just come back from there, and they asked me if I wanted to have a meeting with her, and I wanted to learn about that. And I just asked, like, what is a day like for kids there? And then she was in Gaza, and she came back, and they said, would you want to meet from her and hear what it's like for kids there? And I was like, definitely. So I heard from her, and I knew she was there, and she was describing what was happening firsthand. And then, of course, I did see the distressing, horrific images online. And of course, certain ones just stick in your head, and you just think about your own children.
So she got connected with Save the Children. One of the directors of Save the Children was in Gaza. I believe this was before October 7th. And she was like, yeah, I do want to find out about what's going on in Gaza. So this was prior. And then when everything was playing out, when the genocide was playing out, she couldn't, she also, like everyone else, was seeing these horrific images. But there's more that she says.
And so silence wasn't a choice for me.
Dare I ask, is there an image that does stick in your head?
Silence wasn't a choice for me, people. She does children's YouTube content. If she can say something, we can all say something.
I interviewed Gary Lineker, who's a very famous footballer in the UK, and not a political person. And he's been speaking out a lot, and he's been criticized for it. And I remember interviewing him, and he said, I just sit on my own sometimes watching videos. I sit and cry, and I thought, wow, this kind of footballer, somebody you see is just very, it's very emotional. I just wonder, I know there are things I've seen that I will never be able to unsee since in the last 18 months. I just wonder, was there one particular thing about a child? I don't know. I know you've posted about a lot of individual children,
definitely.
but before you started posting about children reaching out, I do want to come to some of the children you've connected with. But I'm interested in that moment, in those few months after October 7th, when our feeds were just crazy. I'm just wondering, as someone who's just an ordinary American, not Miss Rachel, the YouTube creator, was there something that just stopped you in your tracks?
There are multiple that I can't forget. There was a little boy who was really shocked, and he was shaking, and his eyes were there was so much terror in his eyes. And a healthcare worker was being so compassionate, and you see that compassion, and he finally was able to cry because he was just so shocked he couldn't even cry. And then Hinder Job's voice on the phone.
Yes.
I'll never forget. And I know some people can't even listen because it's so hard, and I think that's so understandable. But as just her voice, and a little boy who was staring at the wall, who had lost his whole family and just was staring. And then there was a child in like a rainbow onesie, and my daughter has a rainbow onesie, and I had to give it away because you just see that, and it just doesn't make any sense, because as grown-ups, we know what children need and what they deserve and what will help them grow into happy, healthy adults. And it will benefit us all. It's right to speak out because this is wrong, but it's also right to speak out because it's going to benefit everyone.
You guys need to understand, this is the biggest rising children's star of the moment. She just got a Netflix deal. She's the only person who I know who has spoken out about Gaza and got a raise. Like, everyone's too fucking scared to say anything because everyone wants, at least they used to want job opportunities. Now it's sort of clear. Number one, there's no job opportunities. And number two, this genocide is not going to end. This woman had everything to gain. She is not famous. She's not independently wealthy. She's not anyone's daughter, or, she is not anyone's. She is the wife of a very, very supportive husband. But she literally could have said nothing. But this is how apolitical. I need everyone to understand how apolitical this genocide is. This is about, we want to stop the killing of children, period. This is about, we want to stop the maiming of children. That you've got the biggest YouTube star who is an educator by her own right. She went to school to study after she started. This is someone who when she got a platform, she used it to then go back to school to get actually an education degree, to do right by her viewers, to do right by the people who watch her show and her program. I mean, like, and now she's saying this about Gaza, and she said silence wasn't an option for me. And stopantisemitism.org, which has doxed everyone from flight attendants to Mahmoud Khalil, who is still in detention right now, who tweets at Marco Rubio, who sends letters to Pam Bondi, and the New York fucking Times is going to quote them as if they're legitimate and not part of the brown shirts brigade, the Gestapo that is using fake allegations of working with Hamas. Come on. You suck. You suck so hard. You suck so hard. Everybody supports Zadeo. Support the Bituation Room.
They deserve and what will help them grow into happy, healthy adults. And it will benefit us all. It's right to speak out because this is wrong, but it's also right to speak out because it's going to benefit everyone.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question. I had a friend of mine recently. I was talking to him, and he said his daughter got married, and he was at the wedding, and he said, all I could think about at the wedding was we're all enjoying and having great food, and what's happening in Gaza, you know, the way they're suffering. And I think about someone like yourself, and you know, I've had the same experience as my wife. We've all had, you know, you go to work, you come home, you think about all the stuff you've been covering. You work with kids. That's literally what you do. You entertain children. You make them laugh. You help them potty train. You see them at their most vulnerable, and you're doing that on YouTube. And then at the same time, you're speaking out and sharing videos and talking about. I think you wished. I saw a post of yours recently where you actually it would have been Hind Rajab's birthday. You're doing that at the same time. I'm just wondering how you're doing both.
You know, it's not easy, but I always think about what's going on over there, and then it becomes just something you have to do. As a teacher, you care about all kids, and I think so many years of teaching, you just see them all as so similar. They all love to laugh, and they love to learn, and they love to play, like, and they deserve to play, and they have human rights, and so you see them as so similar.
You mentioned
they deserve to play. They have human rights. I'm just like, she's like, I've worked with kids for so long, and I'm sorry if the volume is low. There's only so much I can do. They have human rights. Children have human rights, and they're so similar. And this is the thing, is like, we're part of the Zionist propaganda machine is telling us that actually the children of Palestinians are not similar. They're different. The Palestinian children are different, that they are taught to hate, that they are born terrorists. And if you support Israel at this point, you have to buy into the narrative that actually children are not the same, that some children are evil, that some children don't deserve to eat food, that some children don't deserve to play, that some children should be killed. That is where we're at. We've always been there, mind you. We've always been there. But we are crucially at that point now. And Miss Rachel's been speaking out a lot. This is not the first time. It's been progressive. She's ramped up. Unlike a lot of folks, maybe they spoke out initially, now they're saying less. Maybe they felt like they did something and they raised some money. No. Miss Rachel started a little bit. Biden, the Democrats lost the election. She kept going. She's still going. She's doing more. Again, it's just like when you see this through the eyes of someone who is a deep empath, who is a professional empath, it all becomes really, really simple.
Hind Rajab, which is one of the most shocking stories of the last 18 months. But you haven't just posted about Hind Rajab. I believe you've been in contact with her mom.
Her mom messaged me. It's crazy that with Instagram, people can message you. And so
I think that's how we first connected.
Yes. And I was delighted.
Oh my God, she's so sweet. I think that's how we connected. Yes, and I was delighted. Can you think of a sweeter person?
Crazy how on Instagram you can connect with moms, and actually little kids message me too. And I had one recently who lost her parents and siblings. She just has grandma.
Where?
Gaza.
In Gaza.
And she sent me a voice memo, and she's like, Miss Rachel, can you stay with me? I don't have my family. And I voice messaged back like, I'm here, of course. Thanks for reaching out. And
You shared some pictures on your Instagram of meeting with
Dude, she's receiving voice memos from kids in Gaza. Like, can you imagine? And like, yes, I mean, I'm like, I feel for the kids in Gaza. It's a lot for her to take on. I mean, she is a fucking angel. She's an angel.
with a little girl from Gaza who came to see you.
yes, Rahaf.
Rahaf, tell us about Rahaf.
Rahaf, I wish everyone in the world could meet her. She's so delightful. I gave her some gifts, and I gave her like a box of rings, and right away she put one on me and everybody who was around. She was like, okay, here's one for me. Now I'm going to give one to everybody. She has the best laugh. You know, when your children laugh, and their laugh is so cute, and she was squealing. And so like we all started laughing because she was just so cute. And she falls a lot. She has 2 prosthetics, and she falls a lot. And I asked her host family and her mom through a translator, do you guys kind of spot her, or do you just let her fall? Because I know kids love to be independent. We all know kids are like, I want to do it myself, all by myself. Like every kid says that. So they're like, no.
My favorite part about this interview is that little part where she's like, all kids say I want to do it myself, because I always tell everyone like, oh, my daughter's so independent. She always says, I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. But the fact that like Miss Rachel's like, no, all kids do that. I'm like, oh man, she not special. But she's saying she met with this double amputee Rahaf, and that, oh my God, that like she met her. She met her, she gave her love, she gave her presents.
Just let her run around, and you don't have to spot her or anything. So she would fall like on her face, and then she'd just pop up and want to hop like a bunny. And she was just so precious. And she was a vivid example of how when children have what they need, medical care, healthy food, support, they're going to thrive, and they're so resilient. And then somebody asked her mom what she wanted to say to me, and her mom talked a lot about her mental health improving with the show. And then I was shown pictures and videos of her in Gaza, on a hospital floor, and then her just kind of staring into space, looking down, and you can see the effect on her physical and mental health. And so you see, okay, we know what's not right for children. And now we see what is, and we can see it through images and video of her. And I told her mom, like, she's so bright, and she's just going to do great. Like, she's just, she's so worried about her. And the difficult thing is we're so joyful and hopping like bunnies and laughing so hard. And then Isra, her mom, grabs her phone and has her little boys on FaceTime. And her boys are adorable. I think they're around age 7 and 9. And they're in Gaza. And here I am, like, thinking, like, trying to be sweet and talk to her boys in, like, the Miss Rachel voice. But I'm also like, what if my son was over there and my husband, and then I'm here with my little girl losing her legs? And then I'm thinking about the boys, and I was asking if there's any way they can come here. And this wonderful woman was saying, because I was asking kind of her she was translating, and I said, is there any way for them to come here? And she was saying no. And she was saying they don't eat anymore on FaceTime with them. Sorry.
No, it's a horrific situation.
I will never forgive Mehdi Hassan for making Miss Rachel cry. God damn it. I will never forgive you.
Where the controversy is coming from? What you're doing
It's
is just so
really-
human.
It's sad that people try to make it controversial when you speak out for children that are facing immeasurable suffering, the largest cohort of child amputees in modern history, that acronym for a child who has no surviving relatives. And I think it should be controversial to not say anything.
You
Mm,
mentioned
I'm going to leave it there. I think it should be controversial to not say anything. Oh, girl. She just, that's the nugget I wanted. That's just so brilliant and beautiful. It absolutely is controversial and should be controversial to not say anything. Here she is 2 days ago posting on Instagram. It's not a crime to say the children of Gaza should have food and medical care. It's a crime to keep it from them. Mind you, Miss Rachel has never said Israel. She doesn't. She also later in this interview, she cries thinking about the Israeli children who were killed on October 7th. This is not, she's also so sweet. She's like at the end, she's like, sorry, I cried like 18 times. So sweet. But this is the closest as she gets. She's not saying like stop Israeli war crimes. She's saying it's a crime to keep the aid from them. And it's not Israeli war crimes. It's American war crimes. All right? It's on us. It's on this government. And just to like sort of peruse, you see what she is saying. She's reposting these videos from Zateo. The fact that she even did this interview. Here she is talking about a doll that she got for Rahaf.
This is her, and she has prosthetics like Rahaf. And I found this outfit that she can put on her. I hope she likes her. Meeting Rahaf has changed my life forever, and I just love and adore her. Thank you for giving me this platform. I will always use it to stand up for kids.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. This is a person who, even I don't like kids that much, and I have a kid. Even I don't like kids that much. She is so genuine. She is so pure. She is so honest. She is so real. She is so empathetic. She uses her platform and the money she's gotten and to speak out for the people, as she says this in emergency situations. When there are children in emergency situations, we give them care and attention because they are in emergency situations. I mean, even the way that quite literally, to break through to the mind of a like propagandized Zionist, you have to speak like a children's entertainer. You have to speak slowly and explicitly. This is about protecting children who are in emergency situations. Can you understand that what's happening in Gaza right now is an emergency situation? Wouldn't you want, if you were in an emergency situation, to also have food and medicine and water? I mean, this is the only thing that gets through to people, and it even hasn't to like the most committed psychopaths. Fucking insane. Ali Bubble said, I had to stop watching Gaza footage last year. It broke me man babies. I mean, I agree with you. Like, I'm not going to say that I sit here and watch every single video. It is traumatizing to even bear witness. It is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Rachel Atwood, New York Times is impossibly evil for misframing Miss Rachel. I mean, yeah. And the other thing is, like, the New York Times a couple months ago, they did a whole, like, Miss Rachel gets on Netflix, da-da-da-da. And it's like, why top celebrity waded into the Gaza debate? How fucking armchair distance do you have to be to call this a debate? I love the idea that some people still think we're talking about words. Like, some people think this is just about, it's about words. It's about slogans from the river to the sea. We don't like that slogan. Like, you have got to be such a piece of work. Like, and the other thing is, Real talk. This is the same outlet that's doing like splashy interviews with all kinds of fascists, and like making people like Curtis Yarvin and Megyn Kelly look all like cool and black and white. Do that for Miss Rachel. Do that for Miss Rachel. Go do an interview with Miss Rachel. Do what Zateo did. Put her down, fly her out to New York. She's in New York, I think. Send her a car, give her a splashy, gorgeous glamour photo shoot, make it look nice. Give her an interview. She is a thought leader. Miss Rachel is a thought leader when it comes to empathy, when it comes to standing up for human rights for children. Yeah. I'm just like, so gross. This story broke yesterday. Kristi Noem, dog killer with too much face filler, wants migrants to compete for citizenship on a new reality show. A Homeland Security official told the Daily Beast that the show is in the early stages of vetting, though approval has not been given or denied. They're still workshopping. They're putting a deck together. They're putting a little deck together. They're doing sort of like a pitch meeting rehearsal right now. They'll really iron it out. It'll be incredible. They weren't quite sure whether, actually making, the 100 migrants wrestle one gorilla was like, whether that was too much, but they're workshopping it. They're figuring it out. They've got some high-level execs in our now unwoke Hollywood. She reportedly wants U.S. citizenship process to play out in front of cameras. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has been working with writer and producer Rob Warsoff. Oh, God. We got to look up Rob Warsoff's IMDb right now. To pitch a reality show titled The American Fuck You, where immigrants will compete in a string of challenges across the country for the honor of fast-tracking their way to citizenship. The honor. You compete for the honor. What happens to the other people who don't win? Do they get disappeared into a gulag? Citing a copy of Warsoff's 35-page program pitch, the Daily Mail reported the Canadian-born producer aims to celebrate what it means to be American. Oh, God, traitor, kick him out. And have a national conversation about what it means to be American through the eyes of the people who want it most. Warsoff is best known for producing A&E reality show Duck Dynasty. I knew it was bad, you guys. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told Daily Beast the show's concept is under consideration, though she denied that Noem had reviewed the pitch in question. The concept is at the very beginning stages of the vetting process, she added. Approval has not been given or denied. We live in hell, guys. We live in hell. I mean, it's really like, it's a Mad Libs of hell. This is the worst thing you could possibly imagine. It is happening. Just imagine it. Dream it up. I know you can't because you are not evil. We don't think this way. But it's happening. The Department of Homeland Security receives hundreds of television show pitches a year. Does it? Really? DHS receives hundreds of television show pitches a year? Have they ever been made? What show was secretly a DHS operation? What are we talking about? These are government funded reality shows? Is that Cops? McLaughlin denied Noem's involvement in the project, though unnamed sources told the Daily Mail that Homeland Security Secretary supports it and wants it to proceed. Guys, who among us does not think that Kristi Noem knows everything about this, is very excited for this? Here we have this, again, she's being called Ice Barbie, which I think she likes, but dog killer with too much face filler in firefighting costume with hose, posed oh so perfectly. Here we have Kristi Noem with tactical gear, because we're reinvading Iraq or whatever, let alone the photo op of her posing in front of a bunch of shaved head prisoners in El Salvador. This bitch wants this. She is so excited to be in front of the cameras. She is so upset that look at her. She's got a professional photo. I mean, fucking Beyonce doesn't have this kind of coverage, okay? The social media of Rihanna doesn't have this kind of coverage. She is every which way. As long as I look hot, how do I look? The pitch reads, "We'll join in the laughter, tears, frustration, and joy, hearing their backstories as we're reminded of how amazing it is to be American." Okay, here's what I have to say. I'm not fully against this. Like, I don't want it to be an actual Hunger Games style entertainment, but do I think we should hear the backstories of immigrants on a national scale? Yeah, I actually think we should. Like, doesn't this sort of, at its heart, run counter to the narrative that DHS has been pushing this entire time, that everyone that's being swept up in this dragnet and everyone who's here illegally without documentation or currently not a citizen is, by virtue of their existence, a criminal? Like, doesn't this kind of fly in the face of that? Or are they going to be nothing but MS-13 members? Anyway, I got this Photoshop tattoo of MS-13 on my knuckles. Like, what are we talking about here? Because it kind of sounds like this idea, albeit cruel and disgusting, might actually backfire in the way that, like, when you sort of hear the backstory. Anyway, my family was threatened by cartel leaders in El Salvador. My son was kidnapped and held at ransom. My daughter was assaulted, so I decided to leave. I walked on foot through Guatemala, through Mexico. I had to wait on the Mexico side of the U.S. border. I'm pretty sure we're going to get like one episode deep into this and it'll be like, yeah. No more backstory. We don't, there's too much humanizing going on. The losing contestants will go home with the, quote, iconically American prizes, including, oh my God, $1 million American Airlines points, a $10,000 Starbucks gift card, and a lifetime supply of 76 gasoline. Oh yeah, these are enough airline points to self-deport. A lifetime supply of gasoline. First of all, if any of this comes to fruition, boycott. Already boycott Starbucks. What are you doing? The big winner, meanwhile, will get sworn in as an American citizen on Capitol Hill by a top American politician or judge. Quote, "There won't be a dry eye within 10 miles. Yeah, because I'm going to squirt titty milk in it, dude. That's what's going to happen, because I'm going to I swear to God, because I'm going to pie you. I am going to squeeze you like a lemon. I swear to Nope, not happening. This is not happening. Not happening. During a Wednesday budget hearing, Noem was trolled by lawmakers over her many photo ops and costume changes, which have earned her the nickname Ice Barbie. Noem is cosplayed as a firefighter, an immigration official, agent, a helicopter pilot, and her trips around the country to oversee the implementation of President Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda. Homeland Security Secretary has remained unfazed by the criticism. "Every day I wake up and there's new criticism," she told Fox News. "It's something different every single day, so I try not to pay attention to the noise." I mean, bitch, you are noise. You are a friggin' dog whistle every single day you wake up. Like, you are nothing but distraction and noise. You are the most deeply unserious person. I mean, and that is saying a lot for this administration. Tulsi Gabbard's in this administration, okay? Pete Hegseth is in this administration. And you take the cake for least serious person. And this is so on brand for her. I swear to God. Wild. But again, this is where we live in. This is, I'm sorry to say it again, the idiocracy. I know the analogy has been made, but I recently saw it and I'm like, yep, that's it. We have a reality show president. And so, of course, Kristi Noem's going to want to do a reality show. I'm surprised we don't actually have a reality show from within the Oval Office at this point. We're selling them. The meme coins can pay for it. Vetras Varna, as a son of war refugees, as someone who has volunteered in war zones, I cannot feel more sick about a game show capitalizing on human suffering. Yeah. Thank you for telling us that. And yeah. Like that's the whole thing with like the Dr. Phil bullshit, right? It's like Dr. Phil went out there and was putting cameras in immigrants' faces, putting cameras in people's faces that he was then accusing of being MS-13. And then some people want to sit down and break bread with Dr. Phil. Yikes. Yikes. You know, I wanted to say before we go that I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything next Wednesday after the bonus episode. So if you want to ask me a question, if you want any more tea, if you want anything, become a patron, patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Send in your questions. We'll do the AMA next Wednesday. That is part of being a patron. I will make the link available. It'll be private for YouTube members. So you'll have a private link and I'll share that private link on Patreon. I'm just literally running through the tech specs of it for myself in advance. I'll post something right now on Patreon. You guys send in your questions. You can do it privately on Patreon. You could do it under the link. I'll also throw something up over on YouTube. It'll be fun. I realize I haven't engaged in a lot of the drama, i.e. or Marjorie Green going on TYT. If you guys want a video like that from me, let me know. I'm happy to do one for you. I'm sure you know where I stand on all of this. But until Tuesday, another bang up show. It's going to be so good. Beatrice Adler-Bolton is back on the program from the podcast Death Panels. Don't miss it. She recently had a baby, so I'm sure she's got a lot to say about all of the cuts coming down the pike for Medicaid, and also maybe some Luigi Mangione stuff. I'll see you Tuesday. Until then, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine. Don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye-bye.